morning. I don't know if anyone can hear me. Bunch of people signing on, and I'm here this morning, Sunday morning. I got up way too early, and I thought I'd give this periscope thing a try. So if I see some of you are jumping on there, you can the title of this is Bujinkan Ask Me Anything. Hopefully you can hear the audio. I hooked up this microphone here, which should do the trick. Please let me know if you're hearing it okay, and we'll go from there. So I think I've never done Periscope before, so I think I'm going to check my notifications here on Twitter and see if anybody has anything to say. I feel like I'm just talking into the air right now. I see some of you there. Let's see. If anybody have a question or something they'd like to discuss about the Bujinkan, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll just keep rambling for no reason. I don't really know how to use this app. It's showing me people are here, but I don't know how to chat with it. Let's see what happens. In my Twitter mentions, I don't see anything specific there. Anyhow, some of you may know me, some of you may not. I've been studying Bujinkan since the 80s. That dates me a bit, but I first got interested in the Bujinkan probably in 1984 or so. Back in those days, there were many ninja movies in the theaters. There was kind of a ninja boom happening in the United States, and I was a teenage boy, and it was all very exciting to me. So I went to the bookstore to do some research and discovered some of Stephen Hayes' books and articles, and from that moment I was bitten by the ninja bug, I guess you could call it. And back in those days, this was before the internet and before it was easy to find a teacher. In fact, there really weren't many teachers in the West, only a handful, and the only one that I knew about was Stephen Hayes through his books and articles. So I subscribed to his newsletter, which was Shadows of Iga, and then I just started training on my own as a teenager. I would find my friends after school and beat them up. But I had no idea what I was doing. So eventually, when I graduated high school, I had saved up a bunch of money from working summer jobs, and I decided to go to Ohio to train with Stephen Hayes. He was the only teacher that I knew about back in those days that was qualified. So that was okay, but at some point it seemed like Stephen was he was taking a very commercial approach to this martial art, and kind of he was let's see, how can I put it? His approach was a very commercial one and very business oriented, and I was looking for something a bit more than that. So one day I was at my college campus, and just kind of in between classes, and I saw some kid running across the campus wearing tabi, which are the ninja shoes that we wear. Um, so I was very curious. I saw this kid running across the campus wearing these, so I followed him, and uh, eventually I cornered him and I said, "Hey, what's with those tabi shoes that you're wearing?" And he said, "Well, we train in ninjutsu." And I said, "Yeah, me too. I went to Ohio to train with Stephen Hayes. It's something I'm very interested in." And he said, "Well, we have a class on Saturday mornings. Why don't you come check it out?" So I went that following Saturday, and there was a handful of people there training, and I was really excited because it turns out they didn't really know much, but they knew more than me at the time. So I I went for a few Saturdays. I went probably 2 or 3 months. I went to this class, and then one day another guy showed up at this class that we hadn't seen before, and he looked really stern and serious. And he saw us there, and he said, you guys really should be training with this other teacher across town. And he told me about this teacher whose name was Peter Krokel, and I decided to go check that class out. And it turns out that the teacher that I was training with in the park at that time wasn't really qualified to be teaching. In fact, he was only a green belt, and he had taken some classes with Peter across town, and then I guess he decided to try his own training or try his own hand at teaching, and that's what he did. So once I found Peter, I was quite happy because Peter had actually traveled to Japan and trained with Hatsumi Sensei. He had a lot more experience. He was qualified and certified to teach. So that really made all the difference to me at that time. And so I trained with Peter for, I started with him in 1988, or somewhere around then. And I trained with him for many years, and I took a break while I was in college because my course load got too heavy, and I couldn't do, I had classes on the same night as his classes. But after college was over, I made my way back to his dojo, and once I got back, I never quit. And now I travel to Japan 3 times a year to train with Hatsumi Sensei and the Japanese Shihan, and I run my own training group, and I have quite a few students. It's been really a lifelong journey. I mean, since 1984, I've been doing Bujinkan, and it's definitely been something very important in my life. And I'm such a biased person when it comes to this martial art. Like I have this feeling that it can really improve anyone's life or change their life for the better. And I sometimes have to remind myself that a lot of people don't have any interest in martial arts, or they think they're strange, or they think they're violent. And it's weird for me because from my perspective, I see martial arts and the Bujinkan specifically as something that is really life enhancing for anyone. To me, it feels like something that can really improve and help you grow in life as a person. So it's sometimes hard discussing this with people who haven't done it or don't see the point. So that's something that that I guess I have a hard time translating to strangers. Maybe you guys have experienced this yourself. I see some of you here watching, and if you've experienced this kind of thing in the martial arts or in the Bujinkan, maybe you have some feelings about it. I'm looking at my Twitter mentions here, and Oh, okay. So I got a message from someone. They asked me to reintroduce myself. Yes, my name is Michael Glenn. I've been training in the Bujinkan since 1984. Um, I guess if it's important to you, my rank is the highest rank, which is 15th Dan. Um, I don't really think about rank very much. Hatsumi Sensei, he gives out rank for many different reasons, and sometimes rank itself is a trap for people. Um, but if that's important to you, I do have the highest rank in the Bujinkan, and I've been training for almost 30 years. Um, so I hope that answers that question with the reintroduction there. Uh, I live in Santa Monica in California, and I have a dojo here, Bujinkan Santa Monica. If any of you are ever in Los Angeles or are interested in Bujinkan training, feel free to contact me or visit me. You can send me a message on Twitter. You can also email me at bujinkansantamonica@gmail.com. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And when you send me an email, you can feel free to ask any questions or discuss anything Bujinkan related. I'm always happy to share as much as I can with this martial art. It's something that's changed my life, and I believe it can help anyone. Um, Training is interesting. We do it. It's a martial art, and we do it ostensibly to learn to defend ourselves or to fight or learn about combat. But a lot of times the training is a mirror or a reflection for life. So our own life, we come to class and we show up with our own identity, our own life, and the training reflects that back to us. It's quite interesting how that happens. I've seen it in myself many times over the years, but with my own students as well. Whatever is going on in their lives or in their day, they come to class and training instantly reflects that back to them. And sometimes that's a good reflection that people see, sometimes it's not. And training is a way for us to kind of, as Soke says, as Hatsumi Sensei says, to sort of polish that mirror, polish that reflection of our own heart. It's a very useful thing to do in life, and a way to bring another dimension to your life that's very valuable. So I'm just rambling here. I'm hoping you guys can hear me through this microphone. Please send me a notice or ask me a question on Twitter if you have any. I titled this Ask Me Anything, so hopefully you guys have something you might want to ask about the Bujinkan or about my own journey in the Bujinkan. Yeah, so it's Sunday morning here in California. Someone says, thanks, I trained for a few years under Kevin Clark, and work and college have become my priority now. The same thing happened to me. I started training in the 80s, and right after high school I was very serious about training. I even went to Ohio to train with Stephen Hayes, but once I got into college, the course load became heavy, and some of my required courses were happening on the same nights as the classes in the dojo. So there was some time there during my college years where I couldn't really train, and it was pretty frustrating. It was a difficult decision to make, to have to choose one over the other. But as it turned out, when I came back to training after college, I was able to rededicate myself to training in a way that was much stronger. One of the things that taking a break from training did for me was it helped me to understand my real motivations for training. When I initially got interested in Bujinkan, it was something where I wanted to be I really wanted to be a badass ninja or an assassin. And I was a young teenager, so it was kind of a silly motivation, you know. And what I discovered is, because that motivation was silly or strange, um, it wasn't a motivation that could really sustain me through many years of training. When you have a motivation like that, uh, it doesn't really keep your interest. Once you get into training and you realize that the art has so much more depth to it, beyond being a badass assassin. um, it does have that aspect to it, but once you get beyond that, it's very easy to get distracted by other things. And when I came back to training after college, I had missed it so much for those years that I was absent, um, that my motivation for training changed. It became something more of a passion and a love for the art and for the self-discovery that came through training. Uh, and then later, after that, the some of the motivation for training was tied to my friends and my training family, people that I cared about, that I met through training in the Bujinkan. I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but if you're in the Bujinkan, your own dojo is a family, but also if you travel anywhere in the world, other Bujinkan dojos are very welcoming, and other Bujinkan students and teachers are like a large extended family throughout the world. It's very fascinating. When I go to Japan, I make 3 visits every year to Japan to train with Hatsumi Sensei and the Shihan, and there in Japan, I'm meeting people from all over the world. It's really a worldwide art, and all of these people that I meet, despite our cultural differences um, and the different types of lives we've had, the different types of characters that come into the dojo, we're all a big family, and we all really support each other in this journey of training. So that is something that has really kept me going for all these years in training. That kind of connection and support that I have with all these people. So yeah, that's a fascinating thing about training. Um, let's see. Someone at Bujinkan Happo Dojo on Twitter says, "Thank you for sharing." Well, thank you for watching. I've never done Periscope before. This is my first time, so um, I just thought I would jump on. I was up way too early this Sunday morning, and it seemed like a fun thing to try. So hopefully you're getting some use out of it. Someone asked me, are there any online resources and communities you recommend? Yeah, well, there's a lot online nowadays. Like I said, when I first started in the 80s, there was no internet really, so it was a challenge back then to connect with other students or teachers. We all had to find each other through secret methods. But nowadays there's a lot of things. Obviously Twitter is a great resource. If you just type in the hashtag of Bujinkan or at Bujinkan, you can find so many things on Twitter. But me personally, I'm not trying to pitch anything here this morning, but I have a website called rohodojo.com. And it has a small community, and also just the other day I reached a milestone for me. I put up training videos on this website that are full-length training videos from my classes, and I just reached a milestone of 100 of those. I add more every month, and for me that was a big deal to reach 100 videos. It's a lot of work. So that's a resource if you want to go check that out. Somebody here says Winjitsu has a lot of links to dojos. That's true. Winjitsu is an old resource on the internet. It's one of the first. It's been around a long time. I think maybe the original founder of it has passed on. Maybe somebody can correct me on that. But but I think it's still going, and there's a lot of links to dojos on there. My friend Sean Gray used to run a bulletin board called Kutaki no Mura. I don't know if that's still active. I think it's still up. I don't know if people are still using it. It was a nice bulletin board where people could discuss Bujinkan topics and ask questions. You guys might have noticed this, but in the martial arts internet community, there's a lot of problematic people. There's a lot of problematic websites, and it seems to bring out the worst trolls, internet trolls that are, they're all trying to prove each other wrong, or trying to say that their martial art is the best all the time, and it's really unfortunate. It would be nice if people could just share and learn from one another. I think that's the best way to grow as a martial artist, is to have an open attitude, be respectful of all styles, all teachers. Even if you meet a teacher or see a style that you disagree with, that doesn't mean there's not something to learn from it, right? Everyone has its benefit. Someone says, "Can you please pray for me? My best friend passed away from suicide." Well, that's a really sad thing to hear, and I think all of us will keep you and your friend in their thoughts. So yeah, suicide is a rough thing. It's I've had that happen in my own life, known people that's happened to, family and friend, and it's not easy. Let's see, somebody else. On Hapo Dojo also mentioned YouTube was a great resource. Yeah, there's plenty of good things on YouTube. There's also a lot of garbage, a lot of ninja wannabes. But you know, it's easy to be judgy. But you know, I'm sure people see my YouTube videos. I have a lot of them on there, and some people probably are critical of them and think they're garbage as well. So the internet is full of opinions. But yeah, YouTube has a ton of Bujinkan videos, including a lot of Hatsumi Sensei videos. I personally get a little bit upset when I see Hatsumi Sensei's videos up there, because people who post them don't have permission to post them, and they're basically pirated. So Hatsumi Sensei is my teacher, and when people pirate his videos and put them on YouTube, I realize that they're basically stealing from him, and so I don't encourage people to put Hatsumi Sensei's videos on YouTube, but there's quite a few on there, and I know that just because I disagree with it, that's not going to stop people from watching them. You might see behind me here, I have a bookcase full of Hatsumi Sensei DVDs. Let's see, here's one. Let's see if you can see that. This one is from the Kuden series. These Hatsumi Sensei's put out so many DVDs, and this is Kuden Volume 2. I've actually been in Japan while they've been shooting a bunch of these. Basically, they have one of the students in Japan just makes a video during every class, and they're way behind on publishing these. Last time I checked, I think they were still stuck in like 2006 or something. Because you know, they video every class, and then somebody has to edit these videos and put them into a DVD format. So they're really far behind with them. But if you purchase any of these or look at them, you'll see me in some of them. Someone says it's good that they're documenting. It sure is, man. Hatsumi Sensei's classes are kind of a treasure, and you know, these videos are a great resource. You can see I have a bunch of them behind me. Um, so they're a good resource for teachers and students. If any of you are instructors, someone says, I appreciate the info and Q&A. You're welcome. This is my first time on Periscope, so I'm just doing my best. Let's see, on Twitter. Someone says, we have a Bujinkan Happo Dojo. We have a very similar training story, and I've trained with Peter C., meaning Peter Krokel, many times over the years. Yeah, Peter is one of the jewels of the Bujinkan for sure. Like I say, I first met Peter in the 80s, and I started training with him in the 1980s. And he is my teacher. He was my teacher. Stephen Hayes was my first teacher, but like I've said, Stephen was more taking a very commercial approach back then, and I couldn't do any sustained training with him. So I did get my first rank from Stephen, but I quickly switched over to Peter Krogel's training, and Peter's approach to training is definitely very connected to what's happening in Japan and to Hatsumi Sensei, and that was something that I valued very much back then, even more so now. Even though I am a personal student of Hatsumi Sensei, I go to Japan 3 times a year. Peter's insight is very valuable to me still. He goes to Japan very frequently as well, and I think his first trip to Japan was in 1982. So the guy has a long history in the martial arts and a long history in the Bujinkan, and if you ever have a chance to train with him, I highly recommend it. So Bujinkan Happo Dojo, thanks for those remarks. Someone says, how is Hatsumi doing? Well, last time I was in Japan, Hatsumi Sensei was very energetic. He's in his mid-80s, but he still throws us around the dojo like it's no problem. He puts us in a lot of pain in the dojo. He seems like he's doing all right. I mean, for someone in his mid-80s, it's pretty amazing, to be honest. I hope, I'm in my late 40s, and I hope that when I get to his age, I can still be training and moving around. I hope I can even make it to his age, to be honest. Japanese genetics are wonderful. That's part of what the story is. But I think also, he's been training all these years, and I think that really keeps him flexible, physically and mentally. So when I see him in Japan, he's still teaching at an extremely high level. His mind is so quick, and the things he's able to share and show to us are really amazing. Every trip that I go there, I have to make an immense amount of notes, and after every class, and then I come home and I spend my time in between my trips to Japan trying to digest everything that I studied with Soke. I take the things I learned in his classes or the things that we studied, and I try them on my own students. My own students become my guinea pigs, and they get some value out of that because I'm able to share things that I learned from Hatsumi Sensei. So if they can't go to Japan themselves, they're able to get some of that from me. So it's useful to them, but sometimes I'm just using them as test subjects for what I studied in Japan with Hatsumi Sensei. It's but my teachers did that with me too, so that's just the way it goes. Let's see, does anybody else have a question they want to ask? Recently in my Sunday classes here at home, we've been doing sojitsu. Somebody says, I think that's how it goes for all of us. Yeah, I mean, the way the Bujinkan is taught is It's a transmission from teacher to student, right? It's a kuden, or a personal transmission of the lessons from teacher to student. So Hatsumi Sensei is my teacher, and I get to feel directly from him these things and how they work. And then I try to take that feeling that he gives me, and then with my own students, I come back home and I try to give them that same feeling. I try to pass on that feeling directly. So that is the way it works. It's a lineage, you know. Hatsumi Sensei often talks about how important the lineage is in our art and the connection through the generations. He he often makes reference to his own teacher, Takamatsu Sensei. And one of the things he says is that no matter how much progress he himself, Hatsumi Sensei, makes in training, he's always walking along behind Takamatsu Sensei, still following, following Takamatsu Sensei's footsteps. The way he talks about Takamatsu Sensei, it's as if Takamatsu Sensei is still present. He talks about Takamatsu Sensei as if Takamatsu Sensei were still training and teaching him. There's been some very interesting times in the Hanbu Dojo where I've been there, and Hatsumi Sensei has practically invoked the spirit of Takamatsu Sensei right there in front of all of us. And there's been a couple of times that it's been quite eerie. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm a very practical guy. I don't get lost in these kind of woo-woo things sometimes, but there have been some very eerie moments in the Hanbu Dojo there where Hatsumi Sensei was invoking the Bujin, or the martial gods or spirits of the ancestors of the Bujinkan. And so Hatsumi Sensei always tells us that this connection through that lineage, through our ancestors and through the teachers of the past, is the most important thing. So it's like the teacher to student relationship is so valuable. It's a connection, it's a link that we have, and that link goes back through the generations. So because I train with Hatsumi Sensei, I have a personal link to Takamatsu Sensei, even though I never met him. There's a few other teachers in Japan that did meet Takamatsu Sensei, and I train with them as well. And you know, you can actually feel through their taijutsu, when they're teaching me and doing techniques on me, I can actually feel Takamatsu Sensei's presence and his taijutsu through them. I never thought that was something that I would experience, or that I could, or would be something that I would even say, but I think it's a real thing. And when I teach my own students, they may not realize it, but they're getting that through me, through that connection. So I have a connection to Hatsumi Sensei, who has a connection to Takamatsu Sensei, who has a connection to his teachers. And so even my own students, who may never have met any of these people, they have a connection to them as well. It's a lineage. And Hatsumi Sensei always reminds us how important that connection is and how important that lineage is. So it's something to be treasured. Anybody have anything else they'd like to mention or say on Twitter? It's my first Periscope. I don't know if there's anybody new here, but my name is Michael Glenn. I've been training in the Bujinkan since the 80s. So I put up this Periscope Bujinkan Ask Me Anything situation. So please ask a question if you have one. Like I was saying a minute ago, in my Sunday classes we've been doing some Bujinkan Sojutsu. These are yari, or spear techniques, And we've been going through the kaisetsu level of these. Luckily, I have this resource here, which is one of Soke's books in Japanese about sojutsu. But also, I've been lucky to do some of this sojutsu in Japan, and also with my own teacher, Peter Krokel. We've gone through some of the sojutsu in the past in great detail, great depth, and right now I'm studying some of it with my own students. There's a very interesting thing I've discovered. Maybe some of you have discovered it before yourself, but Hatsumi Sensei talks about sojutsu. He talks about something called yari kuri. Yari kuri is an interesting word, and you can use different kanji for it. One meaning of yari kuri is just making do, like you know, being in a situation and just making do in that situation, finding a way to get by. But if you use different kanji for the word yari kuri, yari obviously is the spear. Kuri is, when you say yari kuri, it's like this repeated thrusting or stabbing, right? It's it has this idea of repetition, and so you want to think about the idea of a thrust and a return, and a thrust and a return. And Hatsumi Sensei said something that was so fascinating to me. He said that yari kuri is kyojitsu. Kyojitsu is truth and falsehood, and he said the thrust is the kyo, or the falsehood, and the return is the jitsu. The kuri is the jitsu, which is the truth. So if you understand kyojitsu, truth and falsehood are really flip sides of one another. You can't have one without the other. So if I'm going to do a fake punch, the fake is only going to work if I sell it, if you believe it's real. So I have to sell it, and it's the way I think about it. It's not even being sold. The thing is, it is real until it's not. But they're flip sides of one another, kyojitsu. So it's also fake until it's not. So the idea is, if you fall for it, then it becomes a fake punch. If you don't fall for it, it's a real punch. And so with yari, with sojutsu, the thrust is, Hatsumi Sensei said the thrust is kyo. That means it's a falsehood. Somebody says, what are the best things to train on when you don't have a teacher nearby? That's a difficult one. A lot of people are in your situation. When I first got interested in this art back in the 80s, there was no internet, no teachers that I knew about. In fact, there were very few qualified teachers in the world. And so for me, I had to fly to Ohio to train with Stephen Hayes. That was my solution back in those days. I understand that not everybody can pick up and leave and fly to a good teacher. So if you're training on your own, it's difficult, because anything you do, if you're learning off the internet or off of YouTube, a lot of times you're learning incorrectly. That's just the hard truth. When I was a young man, I first learned that way. I learned through books and videos, and I would, as I said at the beginning of this this periscope, I would try things out on my friends, and but what I learned later was I was mostly doing them wrong. Even though I took what I saw in the video and tried to apply it directly, I was still doing it wrong. So it's very difficult without a teacher. That is just a challenge. So that's a common question. People say, what should I do if I don't have a teacher? Well, the answer is find a teacher. That's just the truth. But if that's not possible, you can still work on rolling. Rolling and ukemi is one of the first things every Bujinkan student should learn. So you probably can find some videos on rolling and ukemi. and you can try to copy those. You'll probably do them wrong, but you know, it's something you can start with. Yeah, it's difficult if you don't have an instructor. So I feel for you. I was there, and I had to save up a lot of money and fly to find a teacher. So yeah. Anyway, what I was saying about the yari kuri. Someone says, I heard Takamatsu Sensei used to practice on trees, but that seems hard to get into. It's not hard to get into practicing on trees, but it is hard on the trees. It's also hard on your fists. I've done it. Back when I was young and stupid, I used to break boards, used to punch trees, used to break cinder blocks and things like that with my hands. It's actually kind of stupid, to be honest. Hatsumi Sensei, he often tells this story. He says that you know, back in those days when he was training with Takamatsu Sensei, there was kind of a fad among martial artists to condition their fingers and hands and knuckles by doing things like that. And Takamatsu Sensei told him that you don't have to do that. It's not necessary. Really what happens when you do that is you end up ruining the structure of your body. And anybody who's my age, I'm in my 40s, anybody who's my age and did that when they were younger, they regret it, because it ends up destroying their joints, it ends up destroying their structure of their body in a way that is actually makes their training worse, and it inhibits their movement. So there are the strategies for striking are not to make these blunt instruments as tough as possible. The strategies for striking are to hit somebody where their body is weak. So you don't want to train yourself to break cinder blocks. I guess the point of that training is to have like an iron fist and be able to crush somebody's skull or something. But the reality is, the smart thing to do is to hit somebody where they're weak. And if you learn the Kyusho and the proper ways to hit somebody where they're weak, you don't need to have an iron fist. You can have baby soft hands. And then you can use your hands for other things in life besides punching people in the skull. Yeah, so that's my opinion. He says, someone says, Takamatsu Sensei practiced throws on saplings. Yeah, well, a lot of us have done that. I've done it too. Actually, what can work really well is a bamboo grove. I have one near me. I was just there this morning, actually. So yeah, you can strengthen yourself and practice with saplings or bamboo. But again, like I said, it's kind of mean to the plants, so think about the plants as part of your family as well. And you know, be nice to them as well. When I was a young man, I did a lot of stupid things. I practiced my shuriken throwing against trees. I punched and kicked them. I hurt a lot of trees and hurt myself. So you can do that, but there's other ways and better ways. So yeah, nowadays if I do any shuriken targets, I use something that's already dead. Yeah, that's the best approach. Unless you're in combat, then you can use something that's still alive. Oh, someone's saying, Bujinkan Happo Dojo, can you finish that thought about yari kuri? Yes. So, I don't remember where I was at, but yari kuri, the thrust is the kyo, the kuri is the jitsu. So, when you think about thrusting with a yari, the way Hatsumi Sensei talks about that, he says the thrust is the kyo. That means that the thrust is a falsehood. So you're using the thrust in quite a few different ways or aspects. One is on a very surface level, it's a fake. So it's like doing a fake punch, like trying to fake your opponent out. But it actually goes quite a bit deeper than that when you talk about kyojitsu. So not only is it a fake to fake them out, but it's like in Bojutsu with this Gokui we have, where you talk about thrusting into the void. When you put this fake into the void, that becomes a moment of creation. This is a very high-level way of thinking about this, but in that moment of creation, many things become possible in your training or in the fight, in the moment itself. How can I explain this? It's difficult to describe with words, but maybe if you, this was Bujinkan Happo Dojo asking me about this, so I think this person may have experienced the themes of in the past with Kaname that Hatsumi Sensei has expressed. So at that moment of creation with the yari, where you're doing the kyo into the kukan, that point, even if it's hitting air, even if it's hitting nothing, that becomes a kaname, and from there Jupo Sessho can arise. And in my own experience, when Hatsumi Sensei has done that sort of thing to me, it's incredible. Like there's a power that arises out of nowhere in the kukan. It's almost like an invisible force that can defeat me or throw me or help him win the fight. And so when I've experienced that from him, and I go home to my own students and try it out, I've been really floored by the results. Like you can thrust the spear into the air and hit nothing, but if you're doing it with this feeling of yari kuri or kyo jitsu, something happens. You hit nothing, but something is created in that moment, and you'd be amazed at the results you'll get. The opponent, or my own students in this case, will literally be thrown by this nothingness. It's something to behold. And so usually in sojitsu, we're using a spear against a swordsman a lot of times. And so what this creates against a swordsman is it ends up disarming them. It may cause them to literally drop the sword, but even if they don't drop the sword, that experience of this kyo jitsu, this yari kuri, makes them defenseless. It creates a situation with the sword where they cannot block, they cannot attack, they become almost frozen in that moment because you've pierced the void. And this is very difficult to describe. Maybe this Bujinkan Happo Dojo person might understand it. I think I know who that person is, but anyhow, someone says it sounds like a bit like Kuji. Well, yes, it is. Kuji, people always want to know about Kuji when they're white belts and green belts, and you can't really do Kuji until you can do Taijutsu. Kuji is something that comes out of the physical, so you have to have the base of the physical, starting with Kamae, and then from there Kuji can arise out of that. So the things that can be accomplished with Kuji are really rooted in the physical of Kamae and Taijutsu. People don't understand that a lot of times, and they want to learn Kuji when they're white belts or green belts. And you can learn the hand symbols, you can learn the vocalization, but you're not going to be able to use it because it has no foundation. So yeah, that's an important thing. Someone says, I saw some crazy stuff with Sven Erik. Yes, Sven Erik is quite skilled, and I believe you that you saw crazy stuff with him. Many years ago, I trained with Sven Erik at a seminar in New Mexico, and it was really wonderful. Had a great time. And I see him in Japan a lot as well. I think he was in Japan the last time I was there, and yeah, he's a good guy. Hello, somebody says hello back. Let's see what else. Hopefully, it says, hi, I'm in Russia. Hello, Russia. So I hopefully I answered the enough about the question about yari kuri. It's something that I only recently started exploring, because, like I said, in my own classes here at home, we've been doing the sojutsu for. We've been doing it on Sundays in our Sunday class for probably a month and a half now, something like that. And when I study a topic like this in my own classes, I get very in depth, and unlike some teachers, I only usually do one kata per class. So there are other teachers that have other approaches, and they're not wrong. Everybody has their own approach, and it can be valid. But for me, trying to understand one kata during one class is hard enough. So I try to stick to one kata per class, and sometimes it even takes us more than one class to study a kata. So somebody's saying, giving me some insults here. Thank you very much. You guys can block them if you'd like. So yeah, one kata per class is my general approach. I don't know how you guys feel about that. If your teachers do more than one kata, or if you guys have been to Japan and studied with Noguchi Sensei. Noguchi Sensei is really mind-blowing. He does about usually does a whole level of a school of kata in one class. So that can be like 10 or 12 kata in one class, and then on top of it, he will do a bunch of henka with each kata. I don't know. I seriously don't know how he does it. Even though I've been through that many times with him, I've gone to those classes many times. It's really mind-boggling to me how he's able to fit in all of those classes. I mean, not all of those classes, all of those henka and all of those kata just in one class. Someone says, maybe I'm confusing henka with waza. Well, those words are a bit different. Henka generally is used to refer to variations. The word henka, like it means change or variation. Waza, generally, that word usually means technique. Those are the English words that are usually used to translate those things. So waza, people sometimes use waza and kata, those words, interchangeably. Hello, Max. My cats are up there. Sometimes people use kata and waza interchangeably, but I think I'm not the best Japanese language person, but I think those words differ depending on context. Waza can refer to almost any technique, whereas kata refers to something maybe more formal or more specific. Usually when I say the word kata, I'm referring to the densho, and a kata that's actually written down with steps in the densho. So it's something very formal and specific. When I say the word waza, that can be anything. That can be a way of punching. There can be a punching waza, right, or a kicking waza. It doesn't necessarily have to be something formal that's written down. So yeah. So anyway, this was my first Periscope here. I might wrap it up here pretty quick. My mouth is getting a little dry from all the talking. I don't know if Periscope allows for people to talk back to me. I don't think so. I think it's just oh, cute cat. They say about my kitty up here. The black one is Max. There's another cat right behind him. Her name is Cassie, and they are cute. I had them out in the bamboo grove this morning, and they were chasing birds and other things. Max got accosted by a German Shepherd, and he's still a kitten, but this German Shepherd was about 10 or 15 times his size, and he went for it. He was like, he was ready to throw down. Yeah, so that was funny. Anyway, Periscope, yeah, I don't know. I think people can leave me little chats, or they can leave me tweets on Twitter, but I don't know about actually chatting back with voice. It seems like it doesn't do that. Somebody said, thanks for sharing. You're welcome. They say we all see the chat. Okay, that's good to know. I'm assuming that Periscope has a way to block abusive chat. There was somebody in there being rude, which, you know, is fully expected, I guess, on the internet. Thank you very much. You're welcome. So I'm thinking this was my first attempt at Periscope, and I'm thinking that I might try to do this on a more regular basis, just to share with people about Bujinkan training, or if people just want to catch up with me and what I'm up to in my Bujinkan training. So maybe for now I'll shoot for doing it on Sundays, since that seems to be an easy time for me to do it. But you guys can look on Twitter, and you may catch me doing it at any moment. If I really get the Periscope bug, I may start doing it more often. So if anybody, if you guys have questions, or you want to contact me, or you want to come train with me, or whatever, you can reach me at bujinkansantamonica@gmail.com. I live in Santa Monica, California, so that's why it's called Bujinkan Santa Monica. So bujinkansantamonica@gmail.com. I also have a website where you can sign up and watch my videos and whatnot. That website is rohodojo.com. So feel free to join me on there if you'd like. I also have myself on Facebook and Twitter, as you see, and please reach out and connect with me. I would like to meet you and train with you someday. And yeah. Okay, everybody, thank you. I guess I'll put an end to this